25 years of fearless and independent journalism. Hello, and thank you for joining us from wherever you are. We are live from our studios here in Kokomlemle on digital address GA09925339. Our top stories this hour. President Akufo-Addo inspects Ghana airport protocols to check against possible entrance of people with coronavirus disease. With details as the president, who returned recently from visiting 3 of countries with recorded cases, subjects himself to thermal scanning at Terminal 3 of the airport. More also coming up as Health Minister says 5,000 personal protective equipment have been procured, and Kumasi authorities downplay speculations of a potential case there. Also coming up, former president of the Ghana Football Association charged with fraud, and 2 others, even as his lawyers insist he has committed no crime. We have details from the court. And Works and Housing Minister tours flood-prone areas as he assures $200 million has been invested into fixing technical challenges of our national infrastructure, even as he debunks reports that what you're seeing on the screen right now actually happened. Those are our top stories this hour. You can join us on DSTV 421, GoTV 144, and on YouTube, where we are streaming live. You can drop us a WhatsApp message on 0540109009. My name is Gifty Andopia. This is The Pulse. Please be my guest. You're welcome to the details of the stories and more. Lawyers for former GFA President Kwesi Nyantakyi have jumped to his defense, questioning the charge of fraud filed by the Attorney General's office. They say he has not committed a crime. The former football administrator was in 2018 filmed in a documentary using the name of President Akufo-Addo to peddle influence. Court correspondent Joseph Akable was in court as Mr. Nyantakyi was granted a 1 million cedi bail. Here is a report.
The charges leveled against Mr. Nyantakyi includes conspiracy to commit fraud, and corruption by a public officer. He pleaded not guilty to the charges against him. Same with Mr. Abdullah Al-Hassan, who has been slapped with the charge of conspiracy to commit fraud and fraud. Their lawyers made an application for bail shortly after the state had presented the facts of the case. The facts indicate that Mr. Nyantakyi and his colleague executed a memorandum of understanding on behalf of a non-existent company that was supposed to be used as a vehicle to ensure that sponsorship comes in for the Ghana Football Association. That money, we are told, was to be channeled through a savings and loans company, Fountain Savings and Loan Company, which belongs to the former GFA president. Again, prosecution makes the point that Mr. Nyantakyi demanded money from the Tiger Eye investigative team, an amount of $12 million to be used to pay top government officials, including the president and the vice president. His lawyers made an application for bail. They said that Mr. Nyantakyi will show up for court anytime he is needed. His lawyers have been speaking to JoyNews, and they say that they are unhappy about the conditions of the bail that were set by the court, an amount of 1 million cedis with 3 sureties. You can listen to Charles Posin, who is a member of the legal team. So cut it.
No, basically these are charges that the state has filed. Our clients have pleaded not guilty to those charges, so the basis is that it is our view that these are not charges that can be proven by the state.
Your colleague was making a point in the courtroom relating to the fact that what is said to have happened amounted to inducement, and he did not demand any money from anyone. What exactly was he seeking to drive at?
No, basically it's like you are on your own and somebody suddenly appears and say that I want you to help me do A, B, C, D, this is your reward. Subsequently you turn around and say that you have committed an offense. And such things I don't think that are permissible under the law, and that you cannot induce somebody to commit an offense and turn around and say the fellow is guilty of that offense. So basically that's what he sought to do in the application for bail.
Satisfied with the bail conditions that have been fixed?
Basically, yes, they are going to meet the bail condition, except that we think that the kind of offense and the kind of amount they say they are involved, you ought not to give such a bail, lengthy bail term, let me put it this way, condition. But I believe that as the court has a discretion to exercise. So they've exercised the discretion. Our duty is to make sure that our clients meet the bail condition for now.
The case has been adjourned to March 25 for the case management conference. Reporting for JoyNews on the Law Court Complex, my name is Joseph Akable.
Joseph Akable with that report. Work has stalled on the Ejuso Donaso Bridge project as thieves steal controller boards, injectors and pumps of 3 excavators. 3 bridges linking Ejuso to Donaso and others have broken down for over 2 years. Motorists and commuters have had to truncate their journeys on one side of the collapsed bridges and continue in another vehicle on the other. Here is a report.
After persistent agitation by residents of communities in the enclave, reconstruction of the bridges began about a year ago. Work was scheduled to have been completed and the road reopened to traffic, but the disappearance of excavator parts means further delay. As police begin investigations into the incident, MPP youth in the area say they suspect sabotage. Organizer Henry Diabuate says they are working with the police to identify the perpetrators and bring them to book. It comes as police have picked up a security guard for questioning.
And there were a whole lot of insults at the presidency, at the member of parliament, especially the member of parliament being at the road ministry. And presidency heard our voices. And then the road was given to a contractor. Kofi Job came to site, did everything he could. We now have just 3 days for him to finish filling the approaches and everything, only for us to hear that some bad nuts in the system have stolen some of the parts of the excavators they are using. It's very pathetic.
What are these parts? What are these parts?
Okay, I heard, since I'm not a technocrat myself, I heard parts like the control board and the pump. And everybody knows that these are the major parts of the excavator.
And how many of them?
3 excavators as we speak. And this has brought the work to a standstill. Police, we know there are some saboteurs. There are people who don't want the government to progress. There are people who always want the name of the member of parliament to be insulted. There are people who think the downfall of the member of parliament will help them progress. This wouldn't work. We are signing a word of caution to those people that the people of Ejuso constituency, we need the bridge badly. And for that matter, the perpetrators, they should put a stop to it. We are appealing to the contractor to come to our aid.
Kwesi the Bryce reports there. Well, least degraded Galamsey land will take over 20 years to restore soil fertility. The Forest Research Institute of Ghana says it will take the country over 20 years to restore the facility to land degraded through illegal mining. Senior research scientist Akwesi Edujemfi says there are deposits of heavy metals in soils of land destroyed in mining areas. He spoke on Love FM in the morning, monitored by Nanaya Ojima.
Mr. Edujemfi shares some findings from his work in illegal mining areas.
We picked soil samples from degraded mined areas at BBN and Atewa, and we realized that those soils were contaminated with heavy metals like arsenic, cadmium, lead, mercury, and nickel, at least from our own research.
And what's the level of contamination?
Well, the level was ranging between, let me say, 1 and 15 megagram per kilogram. In other areas, Where it is heavily contaminated, you could get values over 1,000, but these ones were very low, between 315 megagram per kilogram.
Already, farmers around Etiwa are feeling the pinch of negative effect of contamination as cassava will not grow properly in such soil. Mr. Rijemfi says trees to absorb the metals can be locally sourced for the project.
We were doing soil sampling, and then in our conversation with some of the farmers there, they attested to the fact that previously those lands were producing cassava, planted with cassava. But these days, there aren't cassavas on those lands. And even those portions that you're able to harvest cassava, when you boil the cassava, it's very, very hard. You cannot consume it. And that is a result of the soil losing its fertility. And so the land is not productive enough to yield enough product. Obviously, you would want to plant some of the nitrogen-fixing plants, such as Leucaena leucophylla. And then from our recent research, where we use some of our indigenous species, I mentioned that, in fact, from our preliminary results, we found that fast-growing species like Terminalia superba, Nuclear Dideroca Melissa excelsa had very good potential for absorbing cadmium and lead and other metals.
Experts warn of imminent food security challenges if steps are not taken to decisively deal with the situation. Meanwhile, the Building and Road Research Institute has made 3 proposals to government in the last 6 years on the subject. Daniel Asensu Jembibi is director.
You know, we are the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology. So if you want to take anything to government, it goes through our head office, that is the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, then it goes to the ministry, then that is where policy is supposed to take effect. But what it entailed was to get an area and tell policymakers that, look, this is the extent of degradation. This is what we are seeing, and these are the things that we want to do. Fill up the land, plant the trees, take out the heavy metals, so that at least whilst you are doing this, is about, it's been 2-3 proposals lasting about 6 years. So
6 years, you've written about 3 proposals.
Yes.
And in all the proposals you've written, nothing has come out of it. You haven't heard anything.
We haven't heard anything, but we know that certain things are going on that we see in our proposal. And for us, it's not a big deal if our proposal is being implemented, even without our. The important thing as scientists, we have to solve problems. It's not about us getting the resources to do it. So you go to Takwa, you find a few of those things, but if the originators of the proposals are involved, that would be good for us.
For JoyNews, Nana Ojima reporting.
The Aflao Sector Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority has intercepted a truck loaded with 600 bags of government-subsidized fertilizer allegedly being smuggled to neighboring Togo. The truck was spotted in Yakachi North District of the Volta region, attempting to use an unapproved route through Ave at Tigleme to enter Togo. The second in command of the Aflao sector, Dr. Prince Sodoke Amuzu, explained that they acted swiftly on a tip-off from the Yakachi North District Chief Executive to apprehend the suspect.
Document he gave us covering the way bill, and that way bill is reading yesterday's date. Once he says he took off from the previous day, which was first, but the receipt or the way bill is covering yesterday. That means we have conflicting information. Our arrest is just what I am telling you. We cannot pick somebody for something.
Okay, that's fine. So what's the way forward now?
I mean, he was on the wrong route and he has been arrested. Therefore, that is the reason why we have brought the case. And with this it's not meant and is he qualified person to deal with that? And if you are dealing in that, I will inform the district chief executive to be aware. Because they will have to get your sales receipt and other things and process onward transmission. If you have done that,
Okay. So you are going to process it for both?
Yes.
Well, the suspect, John Paul, however, claims ownership of the bags of fertilizers and is denying that the items were being smuggled out of the country to be sold on the Togolese market.
They didn't give us any names pertaining to that these are the people that we are to sell for. Only if the person brings his valid ID card, voters Ghanaian ID card. That very ID card is what we use to enter our dairy record.
So does it mean if I come with my ID card, then you can give me this?
We don't give out. The government has subsidized it.
Yes, I'll buy
so
it.
The minimum price that we have to sell it.
So if I come without being a farmer, you will still sell it to me.
How will I know you are not a farmer?
That's why I'm asking you. That the Agric Ministry has a list of farmers who are around the country.
Is it the very year, this very 2020, that initiative has been brought, or it's over previous years?
The Agric Ministry has a list of farmers in every district. They know the number of farmers in every district.
So in your district, can you give me some names that
I don't work with them.
He spoke on camera. Okay. I'm not challenging them over anything.
Okay.
Now I wanted to ask, are they arresting us because per the law, or they are arresting us based on where they found us, where they've seen us? If where they've seen us, then they are wrong. We didn't even, as he was saying that Togo police have to waste our time that they will get there. To be frank, we was on course. We were heading towards my warehouse. Let's be sincere with ourselves.
Has the DCU locked up your warehouse?
When I went with them to show them the first consignment, we found out that they've locked it with another key, another lock.
By who?
Which they called the district office to find out who locked it. And it is being confirmed to them that it's them that locked it.
But you can confirm.
No, I wasn't there. I was with them when the incident happened.
It's your warehouse?
I was with them.
You didn't have security men?
No.
So someone locked up the warehouse and you have no idea who locked up the warehouse?
Let's talk about coronavirus. President Akufo-Addo is on a tour at 2 hospitals designated as coronavirus centers here in Accra. This follows a report by the World Health Organization that identified gaps to plan for preparedness, response and control activities in the West African country, which is Ghana. The president also has been cut short his visit to Europe in response to the spread of the deadly disease. He's been touring the Kotoka International Airport to ascertain for himself the preparedness of officials there and the screening process they are employing.
Yes, please have yes. And then we also have telephone telephone numbers for the passengers and their contact person. Any other person who can be contacted should they be needed. So we hope that that will take
in the exhaustive system.
Yes, sir.
And we started encouraging the long-haul buses in country to also pick in passenger data in terms of addresses and telephones, so that whoever is going on OA to Kumasi or Tamale, the bus VIP people should pick all the passengers in there. So in case we get just one somewhere, we'll know who they contacted and we can go track them.
Thank you, boss. The microphone now.
As President Akufo-Addo there, who is touring the airport, checking out for Ghana's preparedness to make sure that nobody with the disease, for example, enters into that country. Well, apologies there for how the camera movement has been. Indeed, usually on tours like this, it gets a bit hectic. We can hear what they're telling the president now.
To make sure that we don't get people bumped together is to sometimes delay flights. So a flight may land and we may hold them. And we use the health ministry to achieve that because
so that you can evacuate the before another land.
So there was an issue this morning where we had to delay a flight 30 minutes and they were complaining, but we told them that we have to do it for the safety of the industry, and so they complied.
Safety before everything else.
More briefing. The president is receiving there. As you saw, he's been flanked by the immigration boss, Kwame Esuatechi. He also has the health minister, Kwajima Menu, and some other health officials talking to him. Be connecting to Elton Brobe, who is traveling with the president on this particular tour. For Elton to tell us what has the president been saying, what are his impressions on our preparedness and our protocols at the airport. Indeed, last time I hosted here a Chinese journalist who flew in from Kenya. We spoke to her about her thoughts of what is done at the airport when you enter. From her perspective, it's not as rigorous as she would have expected it to be. She reported about people who had their masks not worn properly, which obviously doesn't work from her perspective. But President Akufo-Addo himself is ascertaining what our protocols are. He himself has flown from some 3 countries, the United Kingdom. He was in Norway. He was in Switzerland, where indeed cases have been recorded. He, we're told, subjected himself to the thermal trials there to be sure that his temperature is okay as part of the checks for persons with coronavirus. And he's been taken about on this tour by health professionals, by the health minister himself, and of course, the immigration boss. We'll be connecting, like I said, with Elton. President Akufo-Addo, we understand, has already made his way off from the airport to the Ridge Hospital, or the Greater Accra Hospital, where he's been inspecting their own preparedness there. We'll come back to Accra and go to the Ridge Hospital, where President Akufo-Addo has just finished his tour there, where Elton will join us with details. But let's go to Kumasi in the Ashanti region as we stay longer on this story. Well, there seems to be growing concern among residents over a man who they fear died due to untreated COVID-19 in his system. This is even after health officials dismissed the rumors after a test proved negative. But the Ghana Health Service is holding its annual review meeting in Kumasi today, and my colleague Ohimin Teria is sitting through.
Marco Boateng points out health workers will be acting in vain if the public remain apathetic.
We are entering uncharted territories, and we need measures as a country to all come together. These are military issues, or you know, these kind of emergency. It's not for kids. All of us should come together and decide. The universities will be thinking. Everybody will be thinking. Sports will be thinking. Our football, or lecturers, churches, mosque, funeral. Everybody will be affected.
Chinese businessman identified only as David reportedly returned last week from Guangzhou, about 980 kilometers from the Wuhan epicenter of coronavirus, and is on self-quarantined. It comes in the wake of first confirmed case in Nigeria, Algeria and Egypt. Dr. Dumako Boateng describes self-quarantine as one of the best measures for people who have been exposed to the disease. He advised people with influenza and common cold to isolate themselves as well.
We have really what we call case definition, and this is what people should know, so that we don't go into that panic state whereby we are sitting on an edge, and if you are not careful. So we all will have to come together. When do we apply this? It's more technical. When do people go into self-quarantine? Somebody is coming from maybe Italy, coming from South. This is not related. So these are things that we all will have to piece together. But for example, if you know that you are exposed, and how many of us are really in that kind of literacy, where you know you are exposed, you give your number, you go even to your house, you have to make sure that your wife and kids don't come. Where self-quarantine means that I'm going to stay in my house and exposed to my family. So all these things will have to come out for all of us to take that decision. But it comes to a lot of criteria. And then if you meet them, then self-quarantine is one of the ways.
Dr. Dumako Boateng endorses calls for people to refrain from handshake as well as adopt self-protective measures.
The best way I have to cough is this is what I do. Everything basically have gone into there. And the moment I do that, the droplet doesn't fall on any surface here. Mind you, imagine I have been coughing on this and you have touched. It means that you have picked it. So if you are coughing, you cough, and mind you, even if you are going to use your handkerchief, because the moment you use your handkerchief to cough and touch it yourself, you have still infected your hand. If I shake somebody's hand, I assume the person is infected. It means that you have to do what? Wash your hands well with soap and running water or hand sanitizer. You do that. And as we are also discussing, what prevents us as a society coming together and saying, look, we are in serious time, we are in desperate seasons, and desperate measures are supposed to put in place. Please, we shouldn't shake hands. If you don't leave, how can you enjoy your culture? you live to celebrate your culture, your tradition, and social. But if you are not there, so we will begin then to think about how do we do that. Shaking hands, which is so social. Why can't we hold on? And all of us will agree. Why don't we do elbow to elbow? Why don't we do leg to leg as in the WhatsApp media? At social gatherings, one, as much as possible, we stop the hugs, we stop the handshakes.
From Kumasi for Joy News, Ohimin Teria reporting.
Let's go to Elton Brobe, who joins us from the Rich Hospital, where President Akufo-Addo has just finished checking. He'll tell us more, starting from the airport. Hello, Elton.
Yes, Vicky.
Elton, tell us what happened at the airport on President Akufo-Addo's checks.
Right. So the first port of call was the Terminal 3 of the Kotoka International Airport, where President Akufo inspected our preparedness in terms of dealing with people who come into our country because of the global threat that the coronavirus is posing to the whole world. Now, at the standing area, President Akufo, who went on a European tour, subjected himself to some kind of a screening. The rules that they put in place to ensure that people who come in conform. The rules that they've put in place to ensure that people who come in conform to an acceptable temperature level before you are allowed into the country. He was briefed on the country's preparedness. He was briefed by the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Airport Company, who says that so far only 2 persons were quarantined because they showed signs of the coronavirus. They were later taken to the Ridge Hospital, but the test came out negative. So as far as Kotoka International Airport is concerned, they are in readiness to ensure that anybody who comes into the country goes through what they've laid down as procedure. And so far, they've complied with it. President Akufo-Addo was excited about what he saw, impressed with it, and then said that he hopes they'll continue to ensure that anybody who comes in and reports symptoms of what has been identified as common, features of the virus are taken out and then dealt with according to the laid down rules. From the airport, the next port of call was the Ridge Hospital, which has been designated as one of the holding centers in the event that we record a case. Now, they have an infectious disease center, which they have designated as place that will hold people who may show symptoms of this virus. So far, they have 4 beds to take care of people who have come in. The Chief Executive Officer of the Ridge Hospital, Dr. Emmanuel Shefrenyo, tested that so far they've tested 17 people, and all those tests came out negative. However, they recorded a case yesterday. The samples have been taken, and they have taken it to the Noguchi Medical Center. They are waiting for the results of this test. Now, this patient, according to him, is an airline operator who is currently being housed at the Ghana-Canada Health Facility somewhere around East Legon. They are waiting for the test results to come in, and then they can establish whether a negative or a positive case. But out of the 17 they've tested so far, all came out negative. I asked him whether they have all the resources that they need to contain the virus in the event of an outbreak. And he says that so far, the center they have can only take care of 4 patients. They are hoping that they can expand it so that they will be in full preparedness to deal with some of these things. The concern or the challenge they are facing is that people who come out of the country and they experience flu or any symptom that has been identified as some of the symptoms of coronavirus, they've been trooping into the hospital and voluntarily asking them that they be tested, and that is a challenge for them because, according to him, the test is very expensive, and because of the importance the country attaches to this particular issue, they are not charging people for the test. But if they have to expend their resources to test people who come in voluntarily, then it will put a strain on their financial resources. For now, President Akufo-Addo, after inspecting the facility, told us that he's impressed. All fingers crossed, those were his exact words, all fingers crossed, and hoping that we will not get to a stage where we'll record cases. On Friday, at the Independence celebration in Kumasi, we hope to touch more on this particular issue. Before we left the Ridge Hospital, the health minister told us that he was going to address a news conference to update the country on what they've done so far, the cases that they have tested, and going forward, what they will be doing to ensure that the country stays safe as far as the coronavirus is concerned. Gifty.
Well, that's a press conference that we will be covering. We'll be taking live here as well. But Elton, I'm just interested in what you said about the 17 suspected cases. These are all cases recorded at the Ridge Hospital?
Exactly. These are cases recorded at the Ridge Hospital, 17 so far. Indeed, if you want to add the one they are waiting the results to come in, that will be 18. But the 17 they recorded at the Ridge Hospital, the test conducted on all of the 17 came out negative. And these are people who came with symptoms of the coronavirus. So they quarantined them, they subjected them to the test process, and all the 17, turned out negative. Now, what they are waiting to see is the 18th case, which is currently before Noguchi. The patient I asked them about, according to the chief executive, this patient is an airline operator who came in last night, currently at the Ghana Canada Hospital at East Legon. If the tests turn out to be positive, they will move the patient to the next stage of the containment process. And so we are all waiting to hear the outcome of that case from the Noguchi Medical Center.
No, did they explain to the president what steps they are taking after this suspected case, which is still, being tested? Did they explain to the president what steps they are taking? Is this person in a controlled area? Did they say anything?
Well, the 18th case that they are dealing with, according to him, is no different from the ones they've done so far, from the 1st to the 17th. That all came out negative. And because it's their protocol, they have to just follow it. So the outcome will determine what step they take next. But but according to him, at the Ghana Canada Hospital where this person is being held, the person is in an isolation ward, which means that he has no contact with people who are at the hospital and health officers who are also working around him. They don't want to take any chances outcome. They've taken these preemptive measures while they wait for the outcome of the case file they've submitted to the Gucci Medical Center. Gifty.
Elton, thank you very much for that update. Elton Brobe there, joining us from the Jubilee House, live from the Jubilee House. He's been following President Akufo-Addo, who has been checking our protocols at the Kotoka International Airport. The president also went to Ridge, which is one of the designated holding areas should anybody be suspected to be having coronavirus. He talks about the fact that at the Ridge Hospital alone, they said they've recorded about 17 suspected cases, 18 to be specific, because there's one more that happened today and they're still testing. The samples have been taken to Noguchi and the tests are still ongoing. So we're waiting to find out what that result is. You do also know, we told you about the story in Kumasi where a suspected case, health authorities say tested negative, but the person ended up dead. Well, the cause of death has not been explained, but we're told that another test is ongoing to ascertain what actually happened in the case of that death. We're not sure about what it is yet, but 17 cases so far at the Ridge Hospital. They have space for only 4. To wait, they can only take 4 human beings should there be any sort of outbreak. President Akufo-Addo has been checking that. They talking about the need for expansion. He went to the airport where we're told that he subjected himself to that temperature checks as well. And they explained to him the protocols. But what we ought to know, and the information that needs to come from the Ghana Health Service, is whether or not we've reviewed our position as far as quarantine measures are concerned. If you recall, the Ghana Health Service indicated sometime about 2 weeks ago, that they will be subjecting persons who fly into the country from the Hubei province to 14 days quarantine. Now, we're told that from Elton's report that only 2 people so far have been quarantined. But of course, those people have been let go because they were only suspected to have had the virus. It looks as if they were satisfied. Officials there were satisfied they did not have it, and so they let them go. What we don't know is whether we've reviewed that quarantine policy to include other countries, other flights or flights coming from other countries, especially from Europe, because we know the situation in Italy is getting worse. A lot more people have been infected there in Italy. We know that Germany has reported a lot more cases, and we'll take you to Germany subsequently here on the show, so you have an idea of what the case is in Germany on our usual crossover right now. In the meantime, like I said, Health Minister Kweku Agyeman-Manu is assuring Parliament that government is doing everything possible to protect Ghanaians from coronavirus. This is the second time within 2 weeks that the minister is briefing Parliament over its preparedness, or the country's preparedness to deal with the coronavirus outbreak. Health officials are holding a press conference where head of our health desk, Fred Smith, is standing by for us as and when they start. We'll go there. But we can hear from the health minister. Well, that press conference is still, they're preparing to bring us that press conference. But let's get on the phone to speak to Joseph Opoku Gakpo, our parliamentary affairs correspondent, who was there when the minister came around. Hello, Joseph.
Hello, Gifty.
Tell us what the minister has been telling Parliament.
He's been giving a number of assurances, including pointing to how come more than 500 protective equipment have been brought in and distributed. He says training programs are ongoing for healthcare personnel at the very front line when it comes to helping deal with healthcare situations. He's also indicated that when it comes to centers for the necessary quarantine of people who may be suspected of having the disease, there's been the situation of a facility that's coming up that's up to 100-bed capacity. And he says, in his words, the government of Ghana will do everything possible to ensure that Ghanaians don't suffer from any possible outbreak of the disease in the country.
Joseph, I'm wondering if any of the members of Parliament, especially those on the Health Committee, brought up the issue about the Ridge Hospital, which is one of the designated areas to hold persons suspected to have coronavirus. But they can only take 4 people, we're told. Did this come up in Parliament?
Specifically, Ridge Hospital and the number, no, that didn't come up, except that the ranking member on the Committee on Health, Kobna Minta Kando, made a broad claim that he thinks the country is generally not ready. He says that an amount of 35 million Ghana cedis is what was expected to have been released in terms of managing the possible outbreak, but only 2.5 million Ghana cedis has actually been released, which he says is completely out of place. But in the course of that, he got a rebuttal from another member of the Health Committee, Dr. Bernard Okoboy, who is the MP for Lejokuku, who made a point that with Ghana's preparedness, it's virtually the best that you can see compared to different parts of the world. He makes the point that the disease in question is actually to a certain extent being overblown in terms of its possible transmission, because he says that this is a disease that out of every 100 people, only about 2 people who get infected out of 100 are dying. So it has a rate of mortality just around 2%. But other diseases, including SARS and other ones, which are quite common, have even higher rates of mortality, and more attention is not being paid to those. So he thinks Ghana is very much prepared and the situation is very much under control.
Well, apart from the minority spokesperson who put in this intervention, what was the general feedback that he got from Parliament?
The leadership of the House, including both the majority and the minority leaders, made the point that they think the healthcare sector is a very key area that the necessary resources should be pumped into, and that there is a need for government to ensure that all necessary measures are put in place to avert any possible breakout of the disease in the country. So from the House broadly at the level of leadership, they made the point that the expectation is that the preparation and preventive measures will be upped and ensure that the resources are made available and that Parliament should be constantly updated. And if there are any challenges that the health minister thinks would require the intervention of the House, he should make sure he brings it to their attention so they can help him prosecute the broad agenda of protecting the country.
Brief us, Gakpo, on what else was on business of Parliament today.
This was the main item that the House dealt with. We're expecting the Minister for Land and Natural Resources, to come respond to questions on what is being done to better enforce the rosewood harvesting ban. He was on the floor, but it's unclear how come that question was actually deferred and it was never answered. The House has been dealing with the Narcotics Commission bill, which they are working to get amended, and that's still ongoing. But additionally, outside Parliament, I've been engaging the ranking member on the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament, James Agalga, on yesterday's request by the Deputy Attorney General, Godfrey Dame, that President Mahama stepped up and have discussions on the issue having to do with the Airbus scandal. And in the words of James Agalga, the comment by the Deputy Attorney General are reckless, it's unacceptable, and he thinks that it's an interference in the work of the Office of the Special Prosecutor, and that shouldn't be done under any circumstances.
Joseph, thank you very much for that update. Joseph Opoku Gakpo reporting for us from Parliament, where he indicates that the health minister was there briefing the House on what the ministry is doing to protect you and I from coronavirus. Like I said, health authorities are holding a press conference this afternoon on coronavirus. We are live there. It's almost starting. We'll take you there so you have an idea what's happening. But so far, the story we have told is that President Akufo-Addo has been inspecting airport protocols, checking against the possible entrance of persons with coronavirus. And also, we know that he's been subjecting himself to some of these checks. But there are just a few things that you can do to keep yourself protected. Now, what you can do is to consistently wash your hands every now and then, consistently use sanitizers if you can. What are some of the signs that you should be alarmed when you see? There is coughing, there is sneezing, and there is difficulty in breathing. So if you have any difficulty in breathing, you are coughing, you are sneezing, you want to report yourself to authorities, or sometimes you may want to have that checked. Also, what you can do to protect yourself is anytime you use a handkerchief, you need to cough, you need to cover your mouth with a handkerchief. And in that handkerchief, you need to, after you have coughed in that handkerchief, you need to, if it's either it's a handkerchief or a tissue, you need to dispose it off immediately. You had the doctor speak to him in Teria, who said that even if you use a handkerchief and you cough into it, it has some of the particles from your cough, and you touch it later, you could still have it. So you ought to be very careful. I'll give you an idea of what the situation of coronavirus globally is at the moment. Several thousands of people have died. At least over 3,000 people have died. So let's go to the board now. Let me take you through what we have here. So far, we're looking at a totally confirmed cases of 94,250. That's the total number of confirmed cases worldwide. How many people have died? 3,214 human beings have died globally. And if you look at the total number of people who have recovered, you're looking at 51,026. So even though coronavirus falls in the family of SARS, H1N1 flu, etc., the fatality rate with coronavirus is relatively lower than it is with SARS and the others that fall within the same family. Now, if we look at mainland China, it looks like the cases have not been, soaring as they did at the beginning. So let's see mainland China. It gives you an idea how widespread the disease is. If you look at where the red button is, it tells you how widespread the disease is. Actually, that is Asia. So it's covering almost all of Asia. If you take a look at take a look at the map, in mainland China alone, the number of total confirmed cases is 80,270. That's 80,270. But 49,940 have been treated, and those people we understand have been have recovered. Now, if you go to China, we're looking at the Hubei, which is the epicenter, of course, where Wuhan is. There's Henan, Heilongjiang, there is Beijing, there is Guangdong, there is Anhui, there is Chongqing, Hebei. And so it gives you a list of the places where people have been infected. And then it gives you also a list of people who have totally recovered. So this is what China looks like. There it is, the red spots, where you have all of the red spots with China. That is where China is. Well, let's go to Germany, for example, because we'll take you there live very soon, where we talk to political correspondent with our partners, the DW, on what is happening there in Germany. Well, we're looking at 244 cases. Remember, Germany started with just about 4 cases somewhere last month. It's actually less than a month ago since they recorded those 4 cases, and already 244 cases have been recorded. So far, fortunately for Germany, nobody has died. But 16 out of the 244, only 16 have been able to recover from this disease. We'll go to Germany and tell you how authorities there are dealing with this situation. Well, let's check out what's happening in France, also in Europe, and subsequently we'll take a look at Italy, one of the interesting cases as well. But in France, we're looking at 212 cases. 4 people have died in France and 12 people have recovered. What's happening in Italy? In Italy started with somewhere last week with about 4 people being infected. Right now, we're looking at 2,502 cases recorded in Italy alone. Now, if you look at Italy, it has become an epicenter of the virus in this part of Europe. So, 79 people have died so far. Out of these 2,502 people, there's only 160 people who have recovered, but 2,502 already. Let's move all the way down and see what's happening in Africa. In countries, you know, in Africa, we do know that yesterday, is it Tunisia and Senegal recorded some cases as well. Well, in Nigeria, there was 1 confirmed case. Now, this is very interesting because if you record Nigeria's response to this, it's been good because so far we haven't had any escalation from that one recorded more than a couple of days ago. So far, only 1 confirmed case. Nobody has died, nobody has recovered, meaning that the person who was infected is still with the infection in Nigeria. Well, what's happening in Tunisia? Let's take a look at what's happening in Tunisia. 1 case confirmed in Tunisia. So, just like what's happening in Nigeria, 1 case has been confirmed, no deaths, nobody has recovered, meaning that the person who was who confirmed or who tested positive to coronavirus still has the virus. Hopefully, they'll find a way of dealing with that. What is happening in well, let's see, there's so many countries here, and I'm just Saudi Arabia is an interesting case. In Saudi Arabia, even before the coronavirus got there, authorities cancelled the annual pilgrimage. They cancelled it because of the sheer number of people who go there on a religious journey. You know, they go to Mecca. But we understand that authorities there cancelled that trip, and that's very unusual. This, we understand, has not happened in a very, very, very long time, as far as anybody else can remember. But 1 totally confirmed case there right now. Nobody has died, nobody has recovered as yet. But that's the story of Saudi Arabia. Let's take a look at Senegal in Africa. Again, Senegal, as you can see, has 1 case. It is surrounded, by the way, by all of these countries that you see here. So there's the need to contain this disease. 2 persons confirmed with the disease. None of them has died. None of them has recovered. So 2 cases in Senegal. Well, let's take a look at other countries. What is happening, for example, in Mexico? Mexico was one of the countries that was, if you like, a laggard because even though there were cases in the United States of America, Mexico sounded fairly safe. Now we know that even that country has also recorded 5 cases. 5 cases. Only 1 out of that 5 cases has recovered. Nobody has died as yet, which is a good thing. But it looks as if sporting activities there have also been put on hold. Let's look at Finland, where President Akufo-Addo returned from not so long ago. Finland. In Finland, we're looking at 6 confirmed cases. Now, mind you, think about last week, early this week, there was just about 1 confirmed case in Finland. Just a few days, and we're looking at 6 confirmed cases. 1 of them has recovered, but nobody has died as yet. in Greece, where they are preventing Syrian refugees from entering. What is happening in that country as well? 8 confirmed cases. Nobody has died as yet, and nobody has recovered. That is Greece. And the story to Greece is that, well, migrants from Syria are still looking to enter, but there is a strict policy there. They've closed their borders to these people. Well, that is what's happening as far as coronavirus is concerned. 8 cases confirmed there. Well, in Denmark is looking at about 10 cases. And I'm just picking and choosing from these countries anyone that catches my attention. So we look at Denmark. Denmark has 10 confirmed cases. Now, what it means here is that nobody has recovered. So the 10 people who have been confirmed are still living with the infection in Denmark. Well, let's move up a bit and look at the countries with more numbers right now. Look at Canada. Canada has recorded so far 33 cases. After Canada, we'll take a look at the United States of America. Now, United States of America has put their vice president in charge of coordinating efforts against coronavirus. And apart from that, they've committed some $2.5 billion to dealing with this disease. That's the United States of America. And their state agencies are they're working hard to make sure that this doesn't go. But they've recorded pretty interesting cases. A case of somebody who has no travel record, but who was also infected. That person, we understand, has died, and they're still investigating. So every day here on the show, we give you an idea about the rate of spread of coronavirus across the globe. Hopefully, it gives you an idea what is happening so you can keep yourself protected. Let's get to the Health Minister, Kukwaji Maimenu, who is addressing a press conference right now.
Dr. Mrs. Martha Jansalucho, she's the Director for Technical Coordination and Acting Chief Director. Next to Dr. Martha Lucho is Dr. Emmanuel Odami. He's the Director of PPNE. Then we have Mrs. Mimi Elise Daku. She's the CEO for Food and Drugs Authority. Then we have Dr. Bano. He is the CEO for EFRA, that is Health Facilities Regulatory Agency. Then next to Dr. Bano is Dr. Bafwewa. He's an advisor to the minister. Now coming to the left-hand side, I have Dr. Patrick Kuma Abuaji. He's the Director General, Ghana Health Service. Next to Dr. Abuaji is Mr. Matthew Chireme. He's the CEO, acting CEO for Mortuaries Funeral Facilities Agency. Then next to him is Dr. Upoku. He's the registrar for the Allied Health Professions Council. Then I have Mr. Benjamin Ikansa. He's the Director, Infrastructure.
Darrows. VGMC.
Sorry, I have Dr. Ose. He's the CEO for University of Ghana Medical
Center.
That's a press conference that's about to start with the health minister addressing the nation on the coronavirus disease. We'll hear the health minister shortly. As what it looks like he's starting to speak. We can go to him right now.
We scheduled this meeting for 3 o'clock. As you are aware, the president decided to tour some of our facilities to actually check on our preparedness to satisfy himself with the reports we give him on a daily basis. He carried us to see what is happening in one big port of entry, Kotoka. We followed there to the isolation ward or center at Tema General Hospital, and then we came down to see what we have also in Rich. These are all part of our preparedness, and we'll mention them as we go along. That is what kept us, and then we asked that let us do it at 4 o'clock. Luckily, we finished a bit earlier, so it explains the delay, and that is why we are sitting here. So I thank you for coming and waiting for us. Following the declaration of the outbreak of the COVID-19 as a public health emergency of international concern by the World Health Organization on the 30th of January 2020, the ministry has led several efforts aimed at preparedness and response to any potential outbreak. This brief is to provide updates to the Kenyan people on the outbreak and our preparedness and response in Ghana. The number of cases globally sharply increased from 20,000 cases as of 4 February 2020 to 90,302 as of 2nd March 2020, with 3,085 deaths. So that is the global picture at the moment. We wish to remind ourselves of the following characteristics of the disease. Symptoms include fever, cough, difficulty in breathing, and could be fatal. The disease is spread through droplets, that is coughing and sneezing, close personal unprotected risk by touching or contact with infected persons. Currently, various treatment options are being explored. There is no cure, but treatment is mainly symptomatic. Furthermore, there is no vaccine, and prevention is mainly by adherence to cough and sneezing etiquette and improved personal hygiene, such as regular hand washing with soap and water. In line with the World Health Organization's recommendations to member states to prepare and prevent further international spread of the outbreak by strengthening systems for containment, including active surveillance, early detection, isolation, case and contact management, the following preparedness and response actions have been triggered in our country. A health prevention emergency response team has been constituted by the President to handle the crisis, which has been reporting to the President on daily basis. The public health emergency management structures at all levels, national, regional, district, have been activated and placed on high alert. The National Technical Coordinating Committee meetings are ongoing. The Emergency Operations Center has been activated, and we have met five times. Alerts have been sent to all regions to activate public health emergency management committees to initiate preparedness activities and enhance surveillance for respiratory diseases. Stakeholder engagements have been conducted with the Ghana Health Service, the CEOs of teaching hospitals, including the CEO of the up-and-coming University of Ghana Medical Center, the Christian Hospital Association of Ghana, the private sector, the National Ambulance Service, the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research, and the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research, Kotoka International Airport, the World Health Organization, and a number of other donor partners. The ministry has also engaged the Chinese ambassador to Ghana to enhance information sharing and discuss monitoring surveillance activities on returning Chinese nationals into our country. The National Technical Coordinating Committee has met twice to plan coordination and preparedness activities. Monitoring of the national preparedness is being done through the WHO preparedness checklist. The National Public Health Emergency Preparedness Plan has been updated, and the COVID-19 preparedness plan has been developed. The Director General of Ghana Health Service has held a meeting with all the regional directors of health services to discuss preparedness activities and planning for the outbreak. The regional public health emergency management committees have been activated, and all the regions have updated their plans. Parliamentarians and Select Committee on Health have been briefed on preparedness activities, at least on 2 occasions. Our points of entry. Stakeholder engagements again with the Ghana Airport Company Limited, the Ghana Immigration Services, Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority, and other stakeholders have been held to strengthen COVID-19 preparedness and surveillance at our points of entry. Screening of passengers on arrival
has started using thermal scanning and a health declaration form that will be filled by passengers who are arriving at our ports. Staff have been sensitized on case detection and infection prevention and control to undertaking for the heads of the designated points of entry and all Kutuka International Airport staff. Holding room has been identified at Kutuka International Airport to be utilized to hold COVID-19 suspected cases. Training of port health staff from designated points of entry and all staff from Kutuka International Airport. Surveillance. We have adapted and circulated COVID-19 case definition to regional lower levels. We have also adopted a COVID-19 case investigation form and is currently in use. The National Rapid Response Team has been activated. The national level training for rapid response teams and other health workers on severe acute respiratory illnesses has been done. Training of regional and district rapid response teams have been planned for execution. Clinician sensitization, including the private sector members, has been conducted. 40 suspected coronavirus cases have been reported and tested in our country. All 40 have tested negative for COVID-19 from Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research and Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research. These are the two big research centers that are doing the tests for us in Ghana at the moment. Procurement of more reagents and primers for confirmation of coronavirus cases is also ongoing. A quarantine center has been established. Another remotely located 100-bed capacity facility is being secured for the purpose of quarantine for eligible persons, and this will be ready for use in 2 weeks. Case management and infection prevention control. Case management protocols for COVID-19 have been adapted from WHO protocols, and these have been disseminated to the regions for further dissemination to the districts and lower facilities. The Greater Accra Regional Hospital and Tema General Hospitals have been designated as treatment and isolation centers. All 5 teaching and 10 regional hospitals have the potential to manage COVID-19 cases. Staff training has been conducted for case management teams. The World Bank is supporting the completion of the Deborah Ward and the 37 military hospital. This is a 25-bed capacity infectious disease center with modern facilities, and this facility will be ready in 3 weeks. Risk communication and social mobilization. Media briefing has been conducted on prepared activities. We have had one here earlier. Key messages and educational materials on coronavirus preparedness and preventive measures have been developed and are being disseminated at the moment. Soon a lot of them will come to you. Preventive messages on COVID-19 have been developed and being broadcast on airport screens. 4 press releases on COVID-19 have been issued by the ministry. Information on the evolution of the outbreak globally, the clinical symptoms, directions of prevention and measures being taken within the country to early detect and manage possible cases. Updates on the country's preparedness activities and on cases suspected and tested. Radio and television discussions and engagements on the outbreak and Ghana's preparedness activities by Ghana Health Service officials are also ongoing. Jingles have also been developed for the regions, the districts, and are being disseminated again at the moment. Regional risk communication and social mobilization training are also ongoing. Dedicated lines have been given to the general public to report suspected cases of COVID-19. Let me take a little bit of time to go gradually over some of the phone lines that are toll-free that people can use to call when they find a suspected person or when somebody is distressed. 055 22 22004, 055 2222 and 005. The next number 050 94 97 700. It's another 055 84 39 868 and 0800110555. It's a toll-free line that you can use to reach us. Alternatively, text messages can be sent to the short code 199. Our logistics situation. So far, 5,000 personal protective equipments have been procured and distributed to all regions and major health facilities, as well as points of entry, teaching hospitals, and treatment centers, and selected health facilities. Additional protective equipment has been procured, and I will soon take delivery and continue to distribute them. Let me use this opportunity to provide advice to the general public that due to the nature of this outbreak, it is imperative that the general public continue to observe the following preventive measures. Regular washing of hands with soap and water. Okay, this is very, very, very important. Use of alcohol hand rub where available. And in the meantime, our traditional handshaking culture must now be avoided as much as possible. Let me go over that. In the meantime, our traditional handshaking culture must now be avoided as much as possible. Keep a distance of at least 1 meter from a person showing signs of fever, cough, and difficulty in breathing. When in contact with a sick person or with potentially infected surfaces or objects, it is advised that you refrain from touching your eyes, nose, or mouth with unwashed hands. And people should seek treatment immediately at the nearest health facility if infection is suspected, if symptoms occur, or upon advice by a health worker. People from affected countries who develop symptoms should stay at home and call the helplines for advice and necessary action. We strongly again advise that non-essential travel to and from affected areas should be discouraged. Let me go over this again. We strongly advise that non-essential travel to and from affected areas should be discouraged. And let me commend the group that does buying and selling, the Gupta group, for they themselves coming out to advise their members to reduce their trips or going to bring their wares, at least for now, so that they don't move up and down within the system of global challenges. The Ministry of Health continues to work with the developing partners to monitor the situation and further strengthen systems to prevent the introduction of the outbreak in Ghana and early detect and contain it if it should occur. In conclusion, I wish to indicate that the government is doing everything possible to prevent and protect against the outbreak and spread of the infection in Ghana. This is being done in collaboration with our developing partners. I wish to express my utmost gratitude to all development partners for their continued support. We are in this together, and therefore call on the private sector and developing partners to give their full support to our national efforts in this period of preparedness. I thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. We shall now invite the media to ask the questions that bothering you. So the rule is simple. You mention your name, your media house, and then the question. And I think that we shall restrict ourselves to one question each. Then maybe we come to the next round.
looking for a pen. Okay.
My name is Fred Smith from JoyNews. I wish that I'm limited to one. I'll ask you about the measures you have at our land borders, because you mentioned what we've done at the airports. We don't know yet what the measures are at the land borders, so you can update us. And at last, okay. I also want to know about this person who came into the country and showed signs of the virus, was tested, and it turned out to be negative. Traveled to Kumasi, and we understand the person died. We're told that he did not die of coronavirus, but we want to know what killed him.
When you postmortem report,
it's private. It's not. It is not. It is not.
Dr. Wachi, you answer that one.
We cannot tell what killed somebody here.
Good evening. I'm Nana Kwesi Ampon from Man FM. Honorable, I would like to know your meeting with the Chinese ambassador on returning of their nationals. Is it the case that they've hurt the returning of their nationals into Ghana? Or I want a further explanation on that. Thank you.
Okay. Let me start with the Chinese ambassador's area. A number of cities are locked down in China. Not only there, some other outside China sort of centers like Italy, cities have been locked down. People are not allowed to move in or out of these places. When we met with the Chinese ambassador sometime last week or so, the indication is that they have started advising their citizens who, for some reason, come into the country to do their own self-quarantine. Our engagement with the ambassador on a continuous basis is for information sharing, for them to be able to, if possible, alert us of where some of their people have come and where they are, so that we can track and do the type of work you need to do with them. They are filling forms at the airport, so if you find them, we move in to make sure that they actually are observing the instructions on self-quarantine. We are also working together with the national security, who are also tracking some of the suspected people arriving from centers that have been affected, so that we can track and check on them. So that is being done very efficiently. The same measures that we have put in place in the Kotoka International Airport are the same things that we are replicating along all the land borders, especially the two major ones, Elubo and Aflao. But we haven't forgotten about the approved routes across length and breadth of our country, as far as Paga, the Gonokrom and Badukrom and the Sampa area, everywhere across the country, we are on high alert. And now we have got some of our directors who are moving around to actually check, just like the president went around this afternoon, to make sure that they have taken our advice and instructions very seriously, and they are working on them. And as far as the Kumasi case, I will allow the Director General for Ghana Health Service to address that matter.
Thank you very much. The Kumasi case, someone who came from Germany did not meet the case definition to the airport, went to Kumasi, fell ill, and it was, because of the temperature and the respiratory conditions, it was a probable case. But when the test came, it was negative. I can't tell you, it's still a private matter. This is somebody who didn't die from a condition of public health interest, and so we cannot give you that kind of private information as to what really killed them.
But this is part of their ethics, so you don't disclose somebody's cause of death to the public domain. Even to family members, you may need some permission from one or two. Other than that, we can't disclose. But what we know is that the death was not caused by coronavirus. We did 2 tests, one at KCCR, the Kumasi Research Center, and then we repeated the same test with another sample from swab from the person at Noguchi. And Noguchi, you know, is the most efficient laboratory, at least within the sub-Saharan African system. It's a very huge facility, so they can't go wrong, at least for now.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. We are inviting more.
This will be a short conference.
Honorable Minister, my question is, countries like Kenya have suspended flights from China. Will Ghana also do that? Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable. My name is Eko Moses. I report for Bloomberg. This is my first time, so pardon me if you handle all these questions already. How much in total have you set aside to address this issue? And 2, have you roped in private sector? Have you? If yes, maybe some of them, have they also made any commitments towards this fight? Now, there is a multiple school of thought regarding the incubation period for this disease or virus we're talking about. Some talk about 2 weeks, others mention as far as 27 days. Which one is it? And if you could give us some clarity.
You answer this question.
It helps. And maybe you also said ahead, is it 4 or 40 cases that you have tested that were all negative?
40.
40. Thank you. And maybe finally, this is just maybe a PR thing also. Can you tell us that at any point in time, this group, maybe led by your good self, will be the only person to, in the unlikely situation that we have as a case, do the announcement, such that my colleague and myself, media men, will not be running with some sources, somebody say who announced certain things, and we always have to come and do firefighting. Given that it goes through test after test, it goes through a process before an official announcement. So if you could harp on that for us, that at any point it should come from members of this table, hopefully at a press conference before an official case should be deemed credible. This is just some of my colleagues. Thank you.
You will do the incubation period matter. Another one.
Camila from Daily newspaper. Honorable Minister, I'd like to know the location for the 100-bed capacity facility. Location, 100-bed capacity. I would also like to know the treatment protocol should the country record a case. And finally, the WHO
What question did she ask?
in the report stated that the country needed about 35 million Ghana cedis in its preparedness. And we heard that government had also allocated initial amount of 2.8. How far are we with generating of funds to prepare for any case? And then finally, you said more PPEs are going to be imported. When are they arriving and how many are coming? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The PPEs that we are going to take are not coming from our side. We have them in stock in somebody's warehouse that is delivering to us. We were lucky in that respect. So we don't have much challenges with them. Where do you live, madam? Nungwa. So if I tell you that the 100-bed capacity quarantine place is behind your house, will you go home tonight? Oh, be very honest. Sure. Okay. Some of us may not want to go home if you announce that the facility is behind their houses. So in these instances, there are certain things that are kept quiet and people shouldn't know where we are. So we are not announcing where these places are, just to make sure that we don't get unnecessary agitations and pressure on us. We saw some Chinese who had come into their system, and the community, where they were, there is a community that reported the matter to us, even on telephone, that some Chinese have come hiding themselves here. So we, together with National Security, went in there. And when we went there, they have introduced their own self-quarantine protocols. We went over it, and what we did was that we were satisfied somewhat and linked them to our, how do I call it, health people in that area to be checking their temperatures from time to time until the 2 weeks. And we are adding one buffer, 1 week expires before we allow them to come out of their self-quarantine area. And so far, we didn't have any problem. We haven't had any problem from that. So the community people are also doing their own surveillance, and when there are issues, they will come and report to us. So the location, I'm afraid, we can't disclose, not even to the president at the moment. As for that one, we and him know what to do, but we don't even want him to know, at least for now. But we are seriously working on it, and we've got a facility already completed. The World Bank is supporting us to procure, and we are putting in beds, and that is why we said in 2 weeks. If it happens that there's a surge, we can immediately take people to actually move in there tomorrow morning. Budgetary allocations, you asked questions about that. We did an initial budget of 35 million. We got a seed money of 2.8. We have got indication of another release of 11 million. And this morning, aside these two tranches, the finance minister had met with the governor of Bank of Ghana. They called me on a telephone conference meeting, and we have to send a team from our side to go and meet finance people to discuss a comprehensive budget with a view of trying to search for more resources to put at our disposal to do this fight. So when it comes to resources, it looks like we are on course, and what we need, we are likely to take. And that answers the budgetary allocation question my brother here asked. Flights from China. Ghana, so far as I'm aware, has not stopped flight from China. And let me tell you again, there are no direct flights from China to Accra. They all transit. But even in China, so China is a very huge country. Wuhan is an area which does not cover what percentage of the landmass of China and its people. So normal economic activities are ongoing in several other parts of China. And therefore, Kenya cannot stop flights coming from about 2,000 kilometers away from Wuhan, where they haven't found a case and what have you. But even now, Kenya, if Kenya suspends flights from China and continue to take in flights from Italy, what difference does it make? So one has to be careful about what you do. But Ghana hasn't suspended. Only that we are a little bit more critical with people we are encountering on our how do I call information? Forms that they fill, but where they are coming from, that is our critical area. So if you are coming from places that have been affected, we put a more critical eye on you and strengthen our data collection from you so that we can track you to have this thing. We have actually invited a private sector people to come to support us, just like our donors, but we haven't had a single indication from the big private sector person who is coming, but we have actually invited them. Even when I was delivering my address, I made mention that we are inviting everybody on board to support us. So if there's a private sector person you know who can support us, but he wants us to come and talk to him, please alert us. We will so quickly do. I think these are the questions that I can answer. And I'll leave the incubation period question to Dr. Awaji.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have international standards. We have centers where research goes on. And we have CDC, we have WHO. And CDC actually recommends 10 days. WHO talks about 14 days. And we are taking this year by taking the 14 days, which is a longer period for us. And any other person may probably not have any a very good scientific basis to making it 27 days or not. And that person has not been able to prove how he got 27 days. So for now, we choose the 14 days.
That's okay. The last one I want to answer will be the announcement, if there should be a confirmed case. That announcement can only come from the Minister for Health. So any information, anything that you get from any other source, you don't use that one. You wait for the announcement from the minister. If you want to be more inquisitive, you can poach us and confirm whether what they are saying is correct or not. But don't just go on air, on hearsay, that this is what is happening. As we speak now, we have actually detailed a very well-renowned person to join the meeting of members of the Ghana Medical Association to discuss with them as to what people put on the, how do I call it, in the media. You see, all doctors have a lot of knowledge about this disease, but as to how we are managing the problem to actually avoid causing fear and panic unnecessarily, to actually avoid people thinking that the disease is here but it's not here. And I'm talking across purposes. We are pleading with professionals, even professionals, to be circumspect in the way they put information in the media landscape, because this is a very serious matter and we must manage communication in that respect. So by international practice and global good practices, I think even by rules of engagement, it is the Minister for Health who should actually announce this emergency if you should have a confirmed case in our country. If you watch international media landscape, you see all the time it is the WHO Director General who declares pandemic or whatever it is like. You know, in other countries, Iran case, the Minister for Health who was announcing. Wherever it is, that is what it is. The president or the minister, America, the president is announcing. So we must take information from the right source before we begin to disseminate that information. I think that is about all for now. Please.
Yes. Thank you. And in line with that, apart from the announcement, Ghana Health Service has also put out 3 names of people who can speak, whether it's on radio discussions or if you want to call for information. You're also mindful, and that's why we are giving you those 3 names. But those people can also, depend on the section that you want to talk about, can designate, because you don't want to create a situation where people create panic, people who do not have the appropriate knowledge also speaks on the matter. So I think we're very happy if that can be respected. We send a circular to all media houses about the people who can officially speak on the matter. Thank you. Myself, Dr. Bedusa Ako, the Director of Public Health, Dr. C.L. Queen, the Deputy and Head of Surveillance, and of course can be coordinated by the PRO, that is who would be able to give you anybody based on the subject who the service has designated to be able to communicate as far as COVID-19 is concerned.
I think we'll ask our PRO to actually find a way to communicate these names and their contacts to the media, saying that those who are looking for proper, efficient information can source from these gentlemen. Unless, of course, we actually authorize somebody to go and sit on radio station to talk. Other than that, we should be circumspect in our reportage. That's about all.
Because last week we sent the problem, realized everybody was talking about.
Honorable, last question, I'll go for money from again. Earlier, we were made to understand that the mode of transmission of the virus can be transferred from animals to human. If that's the case, we are securing our entry points, the borders, and the airport. But we also have some birds, some animals that fly to Europe and some other parts that they've recorded the disease. How are you handling such case? And also to FDA on importation of meats into the country, how are you also monitoring it? Then finally, are we safe to consume the bush meat? Thank you.
It's okay. You wouldn't respond. I'll respond on the virus transmission.
Okay.
Eric Etemati from TV Africa. Please, concerning what you said about the place where the quarantine would take place, you said you want to disclose that one to anybody. Is it because of that when the Ebola came, the previous government prepared a facility for that? And if I know of one at the Temajiro Hospital, there's one there. Is it because you don't want people to know that that place is also part that you don't want to mention? Or why do you want to do another one? If those ones are already there.
That's a treatment center, not a mass.
Okay. It's okay.
That's all. Okay. Honorable.
It's okay. You answer all these three together.
Look, those of us in tropics who have survived malaria and what have you, do we have any antibodies that sort of predispose us to fight it better, not to say anything, than say our European people who are living in quote a cleaner, less troublesome malaria, cholera, and what have you? Does it have any place here? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to ask Dr. Boaji to answer these questions.
Thank you very much. I'll take the animal transmission. Yes, we have diseases that can be transmitted from animals to humans. And that is why we continue mentioning the fact that we need to treat the process of animals properly, cool them well before. But before the virus can move from human to human, that virus needs to make a change. It doesn't always happen. And if that did not take place, you would not have had a human-to-human transmission as happened. So that still is a threat. But it's not very easy for the virus to change its mode to be able to move from human to human. So, and from human to human, no. Animal to human can happen if you don't handle them properly. But then that will be for the person. But before that virus can move from one human to another, it needs to change. Be able to do that. It doesn't happen very often, and that's why we have it. So you still have to play caution in all those, in any animal you meet, and everything has to be treated quite well. The other one was the. What was the other question?
The antibodies.
Antibodies, no. Genetically, we are the same gene profile, everything is nearly the same. But
so it is still being studied.
we are not the only African country. I mean, there are other parts of Europe, especially if you look at the spread, it's more in the central belt. There are parts of Arctic Sea and also where the viruses are not there. And besides, one of the students who got a virus in China was a Cameroonian. So we are not immune in any way, except that if you do not come in contact with the virus, you will not. Maybe we have so far been lucky. Maybe the traffic into this country is not as heavy as other countries where it's a hub for many people coming in and leaving. And that's what it is. That's why we are taking the issue of early detection at our borders and containment as the best strategy. Because if it comes in, nobody is immune. There's nothing genetically that protects us. That makes a difference from any other person.
To add to what the DJ has said regarding the antibody case, COVID-19 is a novel virus and therefore is still being studied. And whether the black gene is able to tolerate it more or be able to ward it away is still being studied. So as often as the information comes close, we will let you know. Thank you very much. I think the FDA has a question.
Yeah. the meat.
I think the question was on
meat importation.
Importation of meat is in reference to coronavirus. I think viruses are known to only survive for a very short time on objects that are not alive. So I don't think you can get coronavirus from eating meat, because meat that is coming in is not an animal. It's been killed, it's been frozen, so a virus cannot survive on it. If there any other animals are affected for any other reason, the appropriate authorities like the will let us know, but not coronavirus.
Can I take the...
Let me advise. I hear people are going around saying that this cannot infect black people. Please, let Kenyans understand that researchers have not even found the nature of this virus. They haven't even been able to develop a vaccine yet since December. So nobody knows the nature. So nobody should sit anywhere and allow another person to fool you that it cannot affect black people. Again, you were talking about having survived malaria. That is a very huge statement. We have not survived malaria. Malaria is still a very big disease that kills us more than any other disease in Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa. So we have not survived malaria yet. And we don't have any antibodies that can fight this virus. So just let us adhere to etiquettes from coughing and sneezing and listen to the advice the experts are giving to us and abide by them. I think that will help us quite a lot. There was this question on quarantine and treatment center. The quarantine center is different from a treatment center. Those of us who joined with the president this afternoon to see the treatment center, one at Tema General Hospital and the other one in Ridge, they are different from the quarantine centers. The quarantine centers can be a hotel. You haven't got infected with the disease yet, but because of where you are coming from, we want to, because of exposure, we want to monitor you for the incubation period of 2 weeks. And when we don't find anything with you, then you get released. Those of us who listen to international news about the cruise ship that was docked in Tokyo, they were quarantined until they began to see evidence of infection. You see, so we keep them there. And where we keep these people is where we don't want people to know, but not the treatment center. So that is what it is. Okay. I think we've exhausted the questions. Yeah. And I'll hand over to the PRO. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Kajimamenu there addressing a press conference with his health lieutenants there. He talked a lot about our point of entry and what we're doing to protect those. He talked about surveillance, and he said that 40 cases so far have been tested. All of them have tested negative. Well, we heard from Elton say that there's one more on the way to Noguchi at the moment. He talked about logistics, said 5,000 PPEs have been procured, and what ought to be done about keeping what ought to be done for you to keep yourself safe. He talks about keeping a distance from those you suspect may have the signs. Do not touch your mouth, do not touch your nose, your eyes, etc. Then he talks about a group of Chinese people that apparently came into the country, and they said national security went in, they checked on these people, and they have set in their own self-quarantine protocols. We'll bring you more of that after this. Hey, welcome back. Let's talk about career development and how we can mentor young people into that. Well, Ola girls, or past old girls of Ola Senior High School, are doing something, touching lives of young people and impacting them with knowledge. I have two of the representatives from the school here to talk about how they're touching the lives of these young people with mentorship. Ruby Martha Terrier is president of POGA 2000 Year Group. Ruby, you're welcome to the show. I also have here Corinne Malo. She's chairperson of the Career Fair. You're welcome as well.
Thank you, Gifty.
So let me talk about what is the drive here? What is it that's pushing you to touch the lives of these young people in the school with mentorship?
Right.
What is driving you?
You know, we've been out for 20 years now. We've gone through a whole lot of phases. We have a whole lot of our sisters who diverted along the way.
Okay.
Of course, because
when you
we
say
were
diverted, what happened to them?
So typical example, like you're pushed into science. I was a science student. You know?
Okay.
So you're pushed into it, and then of course at that point you don't really know much. So you're like, okay. So you are there, then maybe while in tertiary, then you realize that no, this is not really what I want
to do. Okay.
So yes, but then it took us 20 years to go through all that. So we had to divert. And I keep saying that if I had some form of mentorship, I wouldn't have gone in for science because
are you saying science is such a bad thing? Because we don't have a lot of young people doing science.
Yes, that's the drift.
Now we need people to do coronavirus vaccine for us.
You know, science is not a bad thing. Honestly, it's not a bad thing.
Okay.
But you know, you need to know yourself.
Okay.
You understand? Imagine I wanted to be a brain surgeon. Okay. But then I can't stand blood. I didn't know then. I got to know, I think, way 5-10 years later on, that I can't stand blood. I can't even stand the scent in a hospital.
Okay.
You understand? So you should know
that's
that
not a place for you.
That's not a place for me.
Okay.
You understand?
So if you had someone to guide you to make a career decision back then, you wouldn't have chosen science.
No, I wouldn't have chosen science. I would have done something with economics and mathematics.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me come to you. What is it that you are, how are you going to do this? Yeah. You realize your mistakes. You think you want to touch other girls and let them, so that they don't repeat the mistakes that you made. How are you doing that?
Okay, we sent in, we did the statistics. So we sent it to the school, and then we had the final years especially to go through it, and then we have them going through, and then we have the statistics, and we know the kind of subject or what they want to do after school. So among us, we have professionals with us in the field they chose, and then we are going there to talk to them. It's just that
with these professionals among your group.
Us, yes.
Okay.
So we are going there, talk to them, break them into segments, and then talk to them per the subjects they want to go in, and probably talk to them for them to know themselves whether
and understand
exactly
if this is what you want to do. Are you cut for this?
Very.
But don't you think that sometimes people are not really cut for something, but you put them there and they can perform?
That is different after we talk to them, they would know whether they are in for it or not.
Okay.
Because most of the times, probably Amma is doing science, and then because Amma is your friend, you want to also do science because she is your friend.
Okay.
But probably you are not into it.
Okay.
So that is the brain behind it. We want to talk to them because we didn't have it.
Okay.
So a lot of us did general arts, but now they're in the medical field.
Okay.
If they had gotten this, they wouldn't have gone there.
Okay.
I was in business, but I'm still in the business field.
Okay.
Yes.
Lucky you.
Lucky.
I've always wanted to be a newscaster. So I'm happy that I'm doing what I wanted to do. So let's take your final comments. Unfortunately, I've run out of time during coronavirus. So let's take your final thoughts on how it's going to be, and then we wrap it up.
Okay, so like you said, we're going to have focus groups where we want to bring reality to them. Know exactly how it is. If you really want, if you want to be a doctor, know what it takes to be a doctor.
Okay.
If you want to be a marketer, know what it takes. We are not saying one is good, one is bad. No,
but
be sure.
Know what works for you.
Know what works for you, and be sure that that's really what you want to do.
Any final words from you?
Yeah, we are inviting all progress, all past students of ULA to join us. The program is tomorrow in Ho.
Okay.
So the program
tomorrow,
starts
that's
at 9.
Thursday.
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody is invited.
Thursday at 9 a.m. at Ola Senior High School in Ho. So if you went to Ola, whether you went to Ola or not, she says they're inviting everybody. So make it a point to join them at Ola. MFA Apau, my colleague, is a proud member. Okay, so they'll be there to be talking to you. Those of you who want to be journalists, they'll be there to talk to you about it. But these beautiful ladies as well will be there to guide you through that career journey. Thank you very much for coming. Too bad we don't have enough time. I would have loved to talk about girls in science, but we can do that another time. Sure. Ruby Martha Teria is president of POGA 2000 Year Group, and Corinne Malo is chairperson of the Career Fair. They joined us here for that conversation. Join them tomorrow at 9 a.m. in Ho. My name is Gifty Andopia. There's more news at myjoyonline.com. When you do log on, take your time, read our stories, and if you scroll all the way down on that page, our YouTube link is there. You can follow all of our programs from there. Many thanks for your time, but do stay safe from coronavirus. It is indeed a dangerous virus that's spreading all over. Keep yourself clean, wash your hands, use sanitizers as often as you can, avoid handshakes if you can, and stay safe.